all three top teams of Counter-Strike at the moment have a secondary caller, and there are multiple other lower level teams that also have second callers. And as I was going through this, I was looking at it, and I saw how much impact a second caller could have, how he can change up the tactics in an important situation, and how he can change the game and what it can do to the game. So a great example is, let's say if we put FNS and Stewie2K on the same team and they're playing a match. FNS and Stewie2K would have very different uh, models for the game. They would have different thoughts, processes of how they would approach a certain situation. One person on, if they know one's B and three's A, how they're going to approach that B bomb site, they would do it differently, or how they're going to open their default. They would do certain things differently. And so the impact of a second caller is having a different look at it. FaZe has Kerrigan and Nico. Nico will look at things differently than Kerrigan will. Astralis, while I don't think it's as severe uh, as like Coldzera and Fallen, or Nico and Kerrigan, I think it is still different because Device sometimes has the team set up around him for an early op pick on CT or T side, or he is going to do certain things depending on if he knows the economy and whatnot. And so he has, I think, a little bit more leeway on what he's going to do than most players would in any team, and I think actually a lot more leeway. He calls himself, and then Coldzera I think even calls a lot in SK, and I think that was an important part of them getting back to their number one spot after Zeus left, and he called in like overtime in the MLG finals against Navi, which was like over a year ago now, but still. And I think that was another part of why they were able to win that overtime, because they came back from a long deficit. Because Coldzera is going to look at certain problems in the game, or puzzles, or setups of the CT side, or even the T side of what they're doing, differently than Fallen would. And it's going to be, and that's going to mess with the other team. The other team is going to be trying to study how Fallen is going to be playing, right? And that's what they've been used to in the first X rounds. But then on an important gun round, or an anti-eco setup, or not an anti-eco, but like an eco setup, or like something, a force buy, they're going to do you could have the second caller give input, and it would be way different than if just Fallen did it. If Coldzera put his input in, or he called the round, it's going to be way different, especially in overtime. If you do that in overtime, you're going to be used to one team, and then it's like an entirely different team is playing. But like in this example, SK is used to playing that entirely different way, whereas it's not as different. It's just they're approaching the situation differently, and so it's much harder for the team to read. And then the other in-game leader is going to start second guessing himself, not knowing how to read them as well, and it's going to be much harder to shut the team down and how to change the setups to win the rounds. And so the impact of a second caller is completely changing the styles even of the team. Mid-round even, you can have a call say, hey, I don't hear anybody A main. Let's go through Squeaky, or let's go through A main and bust out on A site cache. And it's going to completely change how the team would look if you're trying to read them as an in-game leader. So the impact of a second caller is changing the team mid-round or mid-game, so that the other in-game leader can't see or can't read them as well. And great examples of this is, again, FaZe with Kerrigan and Nico, Coldzera and Fallen from SK, and Device and Glaive. And I think the second caller has been underrated. I think a great second caller from North America would be Stewie2K. I don't want him to call all the time. I just want him to call a little bit and have impact on the game from there. So I think the second caller position is underrated and should be more appreciated, and should even be looked into more.